What's up? It's your girl Janessa, and this is Find Your Wild with a Y podcast. Okay, I am back with a little more hair. If you can see, there's a lot going on this head. So today I want to talk about what I'm calling like post-pandemic brain, this overwhelming sense of like doom and gloom that seems to have kind of drug on since the pandemic, right? I think it's interesting because I feel like there's such a mental, emotional aftermath that happened from everybody being separated and kept apart, or that was their intention, right? And I think there's just been a lot of lingering mental health things, and I'll dive into it a little bit deeper and kind of elaborate on that. But I think if we all just kind of take a step back and reflect on what the fuck actually happened and how that has kind of continued through our lives since 2020, and how can we move forward from this as a collective, that is my whole intention with this podcast, right? So I feel like there was a mental health fallout with COVID. Like, what the fuck happened to us, right? And I feel like mental health is such a buzzword. Anxiety is such a buzzword. People use that so much, so freely. I don't think there are a lot of true diagnoses with this. And again, this is my own personal opinion, so you can see it differently than I do. But I think people just use that word so freely. But there is a huge mental health component that happened with this pandemic, right? We all kind of went through like this collective trauma as we moved through a global crisis. And I think our brains are still trying to process what the fuck happened. And, there was such a divide that was created during that time too, that has some people are trying to now mend things with friends and family that they didn't agree with. And other people have just moved on and that relationship has been severed, right? But that also doesn't heal us as humans. So how do we kind of move forward from that? There has been a humongous spike in anxiety, depression, overall burnout, right? There's this whole mental health crisis, and that has skyrocketed since 2020. So there's this like weird, sorry, my computer's moving. There's this weird brain fog, memory loss. Why do we forget so many of the basic things now? And maybe it's because we're overstimulated. We are feeling this doom and gloom all the time. There's the fear conditioning news cycles. So many people struggle to feel safe, right? And it's on both sides. I'm saying this as a whole collective. I'm trying to stand in the middle for this podcast episode, because we have so much separation in our country. And I think people need to realize that most of us want the same thing, right? We want to feel safe. We want to create memories with our family. We want to feel loved. We want all of that. The fear-mongering news cycle that happens, it has been consistent since 2020. It has never let up, and it is continuing now into 2025, right? And I think there's like a grief component to this as well. Not if you may have lost somebody during the pandemic to COVID or other comorbidities that they still blamed on COVID. But there is a loss of like a normalcy, what we considered as a society is like a normal life, right? And so there's grief for this loss of a normal life. So how can we fix some of that? So I think we all need to recognize that we're not crazy. Most people feel like this and they just don't really talk about it, or they don't realize that other people feel the same way. It's just kind of your brain reacting to prolonged stress. And the stress that we're feeling is still, I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to say. It's still encouraged with this whole fear mongering news cycle, right? But we can cut down some of these stress triggers, right? So cutting out toxic situations. Well, number one, the news. It just doesn't benefit anybody. We don't need real time negative information all the time, right? There's so many good things that happen in this world, in this lifetime, in these minutes, in these moments, and those get overlooked because we're trying to fight each other in the news, on social media. Social media is another one, right? Lots of doom and gloom on social media. If you want to find something, you will find it on social media. Overworking. Some people just, I have been guilty of this in my own life. When my dad passed away, if I have had really hard situations happen in my lifetime, I have leaned into overworking. That was a coping mechanism for me. So it's unlearning for me, trying to unlearn some of that behavior because it's not healthy. It's just not a healthy way to cope, right? So, number one, I think there's like this mental health fallout since COVID, right? We're trying to figure out what the hell is that. Number two, I think there's a social skills recession. Like, why do we suck so bad at human interaction right now? There's so many thoughts on this. But, and I think different generations feel differently about this. But since the pandemic, since the lockdown, since we were forced to kind of become introverted because they didn't want us socializing, it seems like people kind of feel socially awkward now, right? Like the social skills just really aren't there. If you watch people, if you go get coffee, no matter where you go to get coffee, if you're standing in line, the second people stand in line, you have to wait, boop. And look, I'm guilty of it too. Boop, here comes the phone. We're scrolling. Just completely tune out. Or people will have AirPods in or headphones on, just like, don't talk to me, right? I think that more people feel lonelier than ever, even though we have social media. And again, there is a whole psychology on that. I won't get into that, and I don't have any studies to provide because I've just done my own research, but just didn't document it. I think that so many people will watch your life, right, on social media, and they feel like they know you, but you really don't know people. You know what people want to show you on social media. You don't really know people. So there's a difference, a huge disconnect, right? Like people don't feel. And again, part of that was because of the separation that they created, that the hate for one or the other. If you vote for this, I hate you. If you vote for this, I hate you. If you don't wear a mask, I hate you. If you wear a mask, I hate you. If you get vaccinated, I hate you. If you don't get vaccinated, I hate you. There's just like this, such a huge, the only word I can think of it is like this, just tearing apart our society into two different pieces. And you have to choose a side you stand on. But what if we don't want to choose a side? What if we have friends who think differently than us? That doesn't mean that you're not my friend. We just see things differently. There's so much to talk about besides politics and religion and things that just trigger people. There's so much to talk about in this world, in this life. So many things to share with your friends that you don't have to have the exact same thought process. But I think with that, the separation coupled with people watching other people's lives on social media, it's like they just feel lonely. You feel left out sometimes if you see your friends doing something without you, or you see them, going on vacation without you, or that you see them going to get yogurt without you, or you see them taking a picture and you're like, wait, I wasn't invited. but some people just look for that, right? However, social media has kind of helped spin that into this wicked spiral for so much of our society. And I think the pandemic kind of caused people to become more introverted, even people who were more extroverted. So I've always been, I don't know what it's called. I was an extrovert growing up my whole entire life. Like I do love people. I love knowing their stories. As an adult, as I became older, I've learned to kind of separate myself from um, getting so connected with people because I take on everybody's energy, and I'm trying to encourage my girls not to do the same thing. It's just kind of what feels natural. But I think so many people have kind of become more introverted, even the people that were super social, because we've created this society that's trying to kind of disconnect, if that makes sense. Not disconnect from electronics and social media, disconnect from like that human interaction because we were forced to. And now that kind of has become what seems like the norm. And I had a conversation with the CEO the other day about people going back to work. After 2020, people became remote. And then, and also skincare, right? And you were at home, you could do all the things. You could do 15-step protocols morning and night. You had all the time to do masks and yada, yada. Well, now we're getting back into the routine of like going into an office, which, that's all debatable. I don't know if people are more productive when they're in an office or if they're more productive at home. That's, again, all debatable. I think it kind of depends on your personality and your integrity as a person. But I digress. The pandemic made people retreat kind of into their own space. And now people are starting to feel kind of uncomfortable coming back out of their shell when that is the natural thing to do. We socialize. We are a social species. So it seems like people have just kind of become more introverted by default. And that is not good for our nation, right? We don't need to be out and social with everybody. You can have a small circle, but you still need to stay connected to people, right? And the death, I think there's like been a death of casual interactions. So no more coffee shop meetups or spontaneous meetups. It's just texting, maybe a phone call, but a lot more texting, a lot more communicating through social media, sending gifts or little memes through social media. But that's not like real human interaction. You aren't having like a real conversation with somebody, which is entirely different, right? And I don't mean because I cannot stand just high level pointless conversations that there's no way you get under my skin more than just wanting to have surface level bullshit talks like, oh my gosh, I love your sweatshirt, it's pink, I love pink. That is great. That doesn't jive with me. Like, but that's not what I mean by casual interactions. I mean, meeting up with your friends, calling somebody because you're thinking about them, having like just catching up. Hey, how are you doing? What have you been doing? Talk to me about life lately. Those types of things. We don't need to dive deep, but just having casual human interactions, that is what is healthy. It's what feeds our soul. And on the flip side, small talk seems exhausting. I have said this before and I almost hit till I'm blue in the face. I hate small talk. I just can't stand it. It feels like it's such a waste of time, and time is the most precious thing that we have in this lifetime. That small talk is not for me. And I feel like so many people have realized they don't want to have small talk. Like they'd rather have their headphones on than make small talk with their neighbor, which is fine. That's okay. That's 1,000% okay. But the disconnect of social interaction is not what's okay, right? So how can we fix this part of it? Force ourselves maybe to do small things like start up a conversation with the barista, not a small talk, just you go in and you get your regular coffee, something nice like, hey, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you every single day. You completely make my day. I just get my little cup of coffee or my matcha in my case, and it makes me so happy inside. Something like that. That's not small talk. You are being genuine and kind, and you are making somebody else's day. It's that transfer of energy almost, right? Like good, positive energy. The person next to you can make, not small talk, not small talk, just a conversation. Like, hey, I love your vibe. Like, you seem like I'm watching you with your kids. You're so kind to your kids. Like, I just appreciate seeing things like this. So, just not coming out of your comfort zone, but encouraging healthy, good conversations, right? Like I always tell my kids, we leave people better than we started. We never leave them worse. So exchange that energy. Don't give away your energy so that you're depleted, but give somebody some good energy, right? Put yourself in social situations. So maybe like me, I work out at home. I love working out at home. I don't want to be in a class. But maybe you want to start working out. Maybe go do a workout class. You'll find people. Obviously, you guys have a common interest right there, right? So put yourself in that situation, or a networking event. If you are trying to build a business or you are trying to find someone for your business, go to a networking event, meet people. Networking is phenomenal. You will always need different people in your life. And so having those contacts is huge. Maybe a community group. Maybe you're religious and you want to do like a Bible study with somebody. Little things like that. Limit passive socializing. So scrolling on Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever, all of the TikTok, that is not the same as real human interaction. So you can't just scroll and comment, like, send people messages. That's not real interaction. We need real human interaction to help get over this whole mental health stress, anxiety. We need real human interaction. These computers, technology, this creates more stress if you don't limit it. And be intentional. Reach out to your friends, even if it feels weird. I have made a commitment to myself that if I think of somebody, even if I'm working out, if I'm going for a walk, if I'm driving, if someone pops in my mind and I haven't talked to them, even if I talked to them yesterday, but maybe I haven't talked to them for like 3 months, I will either pull over if I'm driving, I will stop my workout, I will reach out to them and just say, hey, I was thinking about you. I hope everything's good. I hope you're well. And, just want to let you know that I love and miss you, whoever it is, but be intentional. Be intentional with who you spend your time with, right? Because we have soul suckers and we have people who actually give us the same energies we give them, right? You leave feeling energized rather than leaving feeling exhausted. Okay. So the third point, I think there was huge work burnout. I would call it the great resignation, right? And it wasn't just about pay. People aren't leaving their jobs just because they weren't getting paid what they wanted. I think 2020 was the pandemic was good and bad, right? You have to be able to see both sides. I think a lot of people were trapped and they saw like, this is not the marriage that I want to be in. This is not the career that I want to be in. These are not the people I want to hang out with. I think there was a lot of realization in this whole pandemic. And I think, well, I know that more people quit their jobs from 2021 to 2022 than ever before. So why do you think that is? There's so many different reasons that could have happened, but I feel like we were all forced to stop our crazy busy lives and just sit with ourselves and sit with the people that we love and sit with the job that we have. And we were able to kind of just pause and think through things rather than just living each day for each day and moving forward. There was a lot of self-reflection, right? I think, well, I know people realized how much they hated commuting to their job. They don't want to drive that far anymore. They were at home working remotely. Why do I have to drive that far for me to do the same? Actually, sometimes even for me, I'm more productive remotely. You don't want me working in an office. I chat it up with everybody. But, that whole commuting thing, maybe they were like, I don't understand why I need to do this. They could have had toxic bosses. Trust me, I did. They could have felt like this is soul sucking work. I come home, I'm exhausted. I have nothing to give to my family. But you weren't forced to stop and look at it until we all had to stop and look at it in 2020. I think that a lot of people found that there was a shift in priorities, right? Like work-life balance. People wanted more life balance than they did work. They were work, like I just said, work all day long, come home, I have nothing else left to give to my family. I'm short with my kids, I'm short with my husband, I just want to go to bed. That's just not a way to live life. So I think there was a lot of reflection on that. I think there was a lot of mental health support. There was a lot that happened, and that honestly that continues to happen to now. A lot of hate. And I'm going to have to take a stance on this. There was a lot of hate towards people who asked questions and pushed back against things that didn't make sense. So, why are we wearing masks when it says that the masks don't even protect us from this virus? I'm not going to do that. But if you didn't wear a mask, people hated you. I had to travel all the time for work through airports, and I would get the dirtiest looks. I was forced to put on a mask. Otherwise, I couldn't get on an airplane. If you wore a mask, that's okay. I don't care. That's your own prerogative. Then there was the vaccine, right? If you don't get the vaccine, you're putting everybody else at risk, which scientifically does not make any sense at all. Because if you don't have the virus, you can't give the virus. So there was hate for that. I mean, there were celebrities saying people who didn't get vaccinated should die. They shouldn't be allowed to. You can't go to a concert. You can't go to a party. You can't gather with like 3 or more people, whatever the stupid ass number was. You can't get on a plane. You can't leave the country. There was just so much hate. And really, it still continues now. But I think that triggered this huge mental health spike, right? Whether you were on the side that was spewing the hate or you on the side that was receiving the hate, there's just so much. It felt like a dark cloud, and it still feels a lot like that. I feel like some of it has kind of lifted, but so much darkness. And people struggled with that. They continue to struggle with that, right? And even with work, people were in work settings that felt kind of hostile. And people started to realize too that they wanted more flexibility. I don't want to have to go in at 8:00 and get off at 5:00. I want the flexibility of being able to pick my kids up from school and then coming home to make dinner. I want to be able to get as much done as I can and then be done. They wanted that flexibility. So it created this huge shift. And this is something interesting. There was what is considered quiet quitting. Now, this is not how I would phrase this definition, but this is how I researched it, and this is how it was explained, right? So quiet quitting was doing your job without letting it consume your soul. To me, quiet quitting is just half-assing your job. I don't know if a lot of that happened in 2020. I think there were some unrealistic expectations, like everybody kind of wants to be an influencer because they can work wherever they want. Everybody wants to have an online business because they can work for wherever they want, but they don't realize how much goes into creating and building that business. People don't want to do these mundane jobs. And I mean, people as in kids, like they don't want to work at fast food chain or a coffee shop. They want to just make a whole lot of money, but that's not reality. But there was a shift. There still has been a shift. I think there's going to be a lot of realization for the younger generation that their expectations of what a real job and contributing to the workforce and the United States of America community as a whole needs to look a little bit differently. You can't just be an influencer. You can't just have this online business. Yeah, some of you can, but what it takes to build that, most people don't have that, especially in that generation. And I think people in general still struggle with burnout even when they quit their jobs, because they did it for so long that you're kind of having to unlearn that behavior too, right? So how would we fix something like this? The job shifts. I think we need to each person needs to redefine what success looks like for them, right? Is burnout really the price of success? It's not. I mean, everybody's example or definition of success is different. Mine is different than my husband's, that is different than my mom's, that is different from my sister's, that is different from my oldest daughter's, that is different from my middle daughter. Everybody has a different definition of success. Like, for example, my middle daughter, success for her might be getting all of her work in and getting a B in a class that she really struggles with. That might be success for her, and that's okay. She doesn't need to get an A. If she's struggling in a class and for her getting a B feels like success, then I celebrate that. So I think we all need to kind of redefine, what does success look like? You don't need to burn yourself to the ground to be successful. Now, I will say, the caveat to this is building a business. Building a business is hard. It is a lot of work. If you feel like, oh, I want to build a business so I can work whenever I want, well, you're going to be working all the time. So there's that caveat too. There's a lot, when you build a business, there's a lot more upfront work that happens that people don't see. They just see the success that comes after, but they don't see all of the hours that you put in to build something that was that successful, right? I think if you're in a toxic job, you need an exit strategy. Don't stay somewhere that you don't feel appreciated, that you don't love, that you don't enjoy being a part of. There are a lot of job opportunities out there. Find an exit strategy and start moving in that direction, right? Don't jump ship if you don't have a backup plan. That's just doesn't make any sense. And trust me, it will be more challenging. But have an exit plan. If you feel like you're in a toxic environment, have an exit plan. Set hard boundaries, right? Your job is not your identity. This is something that we struggle with in the United States of America. Your job does not define who you are. If somebody asks you who you are, you're not an accountant. You are a mom. You love dogs. You love camping. You were a swimmer in high school. You're so many other things than just that job. So you need to set boundaries. You need to do things that fill up your cup, not just work. Be a good employee if that's what you're doing. Be respectful, have integrity, but that does not define who you are. Look for new work models. If what you're doing does not work for you, look into freelancing, look into remote jobs. There's a ton of remote jobs. Look into passive income. Lots of different ways that you can make money to help create this exit strategy of getting out of a toxic work situation. But you've got to start somewhere, right? So the fourth point here, and what I mentioned earlier, what I think is another really big buzzword, like mental health is a buzzword, anxiety is a buzzword. My husband is a teacher, and he's actually in admin. And there's so many kids that come in with IEPs for anxiety, and a lot of the districts around here have no cell phone policies at school. And the parents will fight to have these kids allowed to use their cell phone because they have anxiety. Please tell me this does not make sense. Please tell me you understand that does not make sense. A cell phone causes anxiety. You don't need to be scrolling. You don't need to be texting. We don't need that constant social media, that checking all the time. Did somebody text me? Did somebody text me? That's not normal. It's not healthy. And a child that is in middle school or high school, they really should not have anxiety. You don't have real life problems, okay? And this is a stance I will dig my feet into the cement on this. Unless you came from an abusive household or somewhere where it's so disruptive in your home, then absolutely, there is definitely a possibility that you have anxiety. You cannot come from a healthy home and have anxiety. Okay. It's a buzzword that is way overly used. If you feel like your child has anxiety, maybe we reduce the video games. Maybe we reduce the cell phone interaction. Maybe we reduce the TV time. Let's get outside. Let's get some vitamin D. Let's go move our body. And let's look at the food that we're eating also. So we are an anxiety-ridden nation, right? Everybody's on edge right now. And this was catapulted from 2020, this whole pandemic. More people than ever are struggling with anxiety, and it's not just about COVID or any of that. It's this whole fear-mongering, doomsday, doom and gloom. It's just has not let up since 2020, and people have a hard time coping or finding coping mechanisms, right? So people are just overeating all the shitty processed food that we have, or maybe they're drinking more, maybe they're just work, and their body's just, it's taking a toll. We have to step back as a society and say, okay, I need to take ownership of this. Anxiety can be controlled. You don't need meds for it. You have to take a step back, look at how much movement are you getting. We are humans. We need to move. We need to fuel our body with real food, not processed junk, shitty food that we have all over the place. Be intentional with your time. Be intentional with your movement. Be intentional with your food. Everything needs to be intentional, right? That processed food, the constant tech interactions, that just feeds anxiety. I think too, there's like this health anxiety where people have a sniffle and everybody loses their mind. Like, oh my God, it's a panic attack. They're getting sick. I got to put a mask on. Or they're getting sick. Don't stand next to me. We've never been like that. We, again, are humans. Viruses are going to spread. Bacteria is going to spread. I mean, this is just the nature of the beast, right? We don't need to panic and have this anxiety. It's okay. We won't all die. Just take care of yourself. Do some inner health work. Do some inner gut work. I have a ton of resources on that, but that is a a place to start. I rarely get sick anymore because I have done so much internally to help my body cope with when I'm exposed to viruses and bacteria. I'm able to fight it off a lot easier, right? The constant doom scrolling. This will just elevate anxiety through the roof. Doom scroll, doom scroll, doom scroll, doom scroll. Hate this. I hate this person. They hate this person. I hate. It's just so much negativity. I wish we could just honestly block anything political. I don't want to say that we should not understand what's going on. It just feels like we're all kind of drowning with this political negative shit. The news sources are paid by the federal government to say this, that, and the other. It's just so convoluted that we need to focus on what we can control, and the doom scrolling does not help. I think everybody feels they're mentally exhausted all the time, right? Like you could not even be doing much, but you just feel exhausted. And it's all of everything that I've said, right? It's just compounding on top of each other. And this one, the rise of that low level dread. Like, what is the next thing that's going to happen? We've had so much shit happen since 2020. And more recently, the huge, massive floods that happened in North Carolina, and then the massive fires that took out like hundreds and hundreds, thousands of homes, I think, in Southern California. So what's next? What's next? What's next? It's that fight or flight that everybody's living in. We have got to stop. And again, minimizing the social media interactions, that will help a ton. Minimizing your watching the news, that will help a ton. Get outside, talk to your neighbor, take a break from tech, figure out what sets your soul on fire, start putting your energy into that and your family, and we can start to make a shift with this whole mental health crisis disaster that's happening right now. So, I mean, I kind of already mentioned some things to focus on, but limiting the news intake, I've just harped on that enough. We don't need to know every terrible thing that's happening in real time. We just don't. What are you going to do with that? Cut down social media negativity. Unfollow accounts that are bothering you, that are triggering something in you. If they're your friends and they're posting all kinds of shit that you don't want to see, but you don't want to unfollow them, then mute them. You can mute them for a long time. You can mute them for a short amount of time. You don't need that in your life, okay? Focus on what you can control. Your health, your habits, your mindset. Lots of different ways to do that. If you want to just start by doing one walk a day because you don't exercise, start by doing one walk a day, okay? And on your one walk a day, you can choose a podcast if you want to, or you can just choose nature's noise outside and let your mind kind of flow, right? We're so quick, and I do this too, because I love to listen to music or listen to a podcast while I'm walking, but you don't need to. You can just you can just walk in silence without the music or the podcast and just let your mind flow. That's sometimes when I have the best ideas. Getting into stress reducing habits. So breath work, learning different breathing techniques. When you feel triggered or you feel stressed out, try some breath work. Movement. Like I said, if you don't move all the time, just get out and walk. Go around the block once or twice. It will make things different. It will shift things. Journal. If you like to journal, write it out. You can do it in the evening right before you go to bed. Just journal about your day, journal about your feelings, journal about the things that you want to happen. manifest that. You can pray, you can meditate, you can do all of those things, but do those things that help serve to calm your mind. Okay, so how are we going to mitigate this whole mental health crisis without like moving to a remote cabin in the woods? Because I want to do that all the time. I think we need to get out of the survival mode. I've said this multiple times, but this fight or flight, just get through the day mentality, that is not healthy for anybody. We are humans. We are meant to live a fruitful, healthy, happy, eventful life, right? We can't just wait for the next bad thing to happen. It's good to be prepared in certain situations, but we don't know what's coming. We need to just continue to live our lives and not in this fight or flight. We need to calm the nervous system. I've said this multiple times. I will reiterate it again. Reduce or ditch the doom scrolling. It does not serve you. It does not serve you. Okay, if you did not hear that, it does not serve you. Okay, ditch it. It will keep your anxiety at an all-time high. If you want to get on there, maybe you set some limits like, hey, I'm going to set a 10-minute timer. I'm going to get on social media. 10 minutes is up. I'm done. Get off. That's it. Non-negotiable. Prioritize real human connection. Okay. Zoom calls. I don't do Zoom calls with my friends. Phone calls are fine, right? If they live across the country, but if you have friends that live close by, really try to be purposeful in setting up lunch dates, coffee dates, dinner dates, and get that real human interaction. Rebuild your routine and structure, right? So when the pandemic hit, again, we all came to like a screeching halt. And it was like, we went from crazy busy to all of a sudden, holy shit, boom, what do I do with my day? Now we're all trying to figure out a new routine. So find a structure that works for you or a routine that works for you. For me, I like to work out early in the mornings, right? If I can get my workout early in the morning, I feel like I'm ready for the rest of my day. I feel productive. I am done. I don't have to worry about it. I don't go to a physical office. Well, I do a couple days a week, but I still just wake up between 5:30 and 6 in the morning. I work out, get ready, take my kids to school. I'm ready for my day. Not everybody functions like that. Some people want to work out in the evening. Find what works for you and stick to that routine. Create a structure. Again, redefine success and productivity. Working 24/7, grinding 24/7 is not realistic or healthy for anybody. So you define what success looks like for you, not for your friend or your sister or your mom. You define what success looks like for you. It's going to be different for your husband or your wife as well. Define what that looks like and then move forward with that new structure, with that new schedule. And I think this last point is like the hardest for women, and even more so for moms, is just finding joy kind of again on your own. Something that makes you happy. You don't always have to be productive. Your body needs a little bit of downtime. It needs a little bit of time to just take a break, decompress. If you want to sit down and read a book, a couple chapters of your book, if you want to sit down and watch a Netflix show by yourself, if you want to go garden, if you want to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other things that we might consider unproductive. If you want to go paint or draw, and that's what fills up your cup and brings joy to you. If you want to take a pottery class, I really want to do that. It doesn't have to be production all the time. You don't have to be productive all the time. You need to be able to fill up your cup with something that makes you happy, not go, 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 go. I don't know what my purpose is. Take a break, find something that brings you joy, unplug, And just know that that's okay. You don't always have to be 1,000% productive. Okay. On the last note, my kind of final thoughts on all of this is that the world may feel chaotic and exhausting and overwhelming, but there's also a flip side to that, right? We can control what we're being fed by the amount of time that we're giving ourself access to it, by the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. We don't always have to be stuck in this survival mode. You can do things that bring you joy and take a break from chaos and not be productive. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen next. I always say if the dinosaurs started walking down the street, I wouldn't be surprised. But don't hold your breath in anticipation for what's going to happen next. Oh my gosh, that is you living in fight or flight. That is you living in survival mode. Take a breath, get outside, disconnect, fuel your body with real food, surround yourself with good people, and just know that everything's going to be okay. And I think that just understanding why we feel this way, it's okay. A lot of us feel the same way since 2020. It's okay. We just need to understand that we've been through a lot of shit. There has been some collective trauma that has happened, and we are recognizing it. Make the small changes that you need to. Prioritize your mental health. Make those real life connections. Set those boundaries. And then we can all start to move forward and feel like humans again. So, hopefully this helped somebody. I know that we struggle sometimes with even talking about this, or we feel like we've moved forward. Why would we even reflect back? Or we feel like, why do we still feel like this? This happened so long ago. But there was a lot of trauma that happened. There was families that were torn apart, friends that were torn apart. Some people are trying to mend things back. Other people, again, have created their separate ways, and that's just what's going to happen. But I think we just need to recognize what we all went through and then learn some new progressive steps to move forward so that we can all become a diverse, healthy, engaging, supportive community as a nation, and not allow the infiltration of so much negativity to run and control our lives. I hope that somebody learned something. I hope that this helped someone. Feel free to send this to a friend. I hope that everybody is ready for a good 2025 and you're ready for some good changes. To that, I say, have a great rest of your day. As always, thank you so much for your time, because at the end of the day, that's the most important currency we have. I hope you took something away from today's episode. Don't forget to follow me at Find Your Wild with a Y on all your socials, as well as following the podcast on any of the platforms that you listen to. And most importantly, I hope you are one step closer to finding your wild.